Hello and welcome to another exciting podcast. I need a new intro. I'm I'm your host, Jaymie White, and I have with me as always Ray Hayes. Ray, as always, thanks
What's
for joining
going
me.
What's going on, Jaymie? It's nothing but a pleasure, my man.
But a pleasure. I appreciate that. Before we get into it, two things. So first, I want to say this as we start off. Please, if you enjoy everything that we're doing and whatnot, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video. And then the second piece is definitely want to thank everybody for the popularity and the views of the last video. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, so last video we did was the Cornell West and Ta-Nehisi Coates kind of conflict that they're going through, and the article that Cornell West wrote about Ta-Nehisi Coates. So we gave our thoughts on there. So definitely check out that video if you have time and you like what we're saying here. It's funny because we thought we were going to get max 50 views. And
Not even that, honestly.
I was thinking 50. And instead we ended up getting over 2,000. So the most popular video to date, by far. So again, just thanks for thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the subscriptions that we got off of that.
It-
Hopefully we'll
it's
continue.
crazy to see that Ta-Nehisi Coates has left Twitter
Yeah,
saying he didn't sign up for this in regards to Cornell's West criticism and I guess the Twitter storm in regards to this issue. So I mean, it was an interesting conversation, and definitely thank everybody for listening to it, for the comments.
yeah, especially
I,
guys.
I really, I really definitely appreciate it. I mean, it made my day.
Yeah,
Jordan made yours too. We was talking about it a lot, so it's pretty cool. So thank everybody.
Yeah, it was good. So appreciate that. But today we've got another conversation coming at you. Well, two ones, I guess. First, we're going to do a short one. Then the main bulk of it will be about the CDC and their, I guess, ban slash not ban of 7 words that their employees may or may not be able to use. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into it, today we found out that Papa John's CEO just stepped down. So we definitely want to give our thoughts on that. Oh, it sounds
Say it ain't so.
like so I'll give
Though.
I'll give a quick overview of what happened prior, what led up to this, and then Ray, you can definitely give your thoughts. So for those who don't know, Papa John is a really big sponsor for the National Football League. And as you're aware, the NFL, or National Football League, their ratings have dropped. So a big reason why, what some people are saying, not all, but some people are saying, is because of the protests. Obviously, with the players kneeling, this is taking away from the national anthem and the support of America, according to some people, and ratings have dropped because of that. And in addition to ratings being dropping, Papa John's revenue has also decreased. So the CEO came out I want to say about a month or so ago, blaming the NFL for their drop in revenue, stating that because players are kneeling, it's caused a drop in ratings, and in contrast, I mean not contrast, but because of that, it correlates to the decrease in revenue for Papa John. So after a while, he got hit with a lot of negative feedback, and that has resulted in today where he stepped down. I also want to point out, in the midst of this, that not all pizza places have seen a drop in revenue. In fact, I think it's either Domino's or Pizza Hut are up like 7%, or something like that in terms of the total revenue for this year. So don't know where it's getting at, but because they have nothing to do with the NFL, I don't know. But
No, pizza just tastes better.
Problem solved.
Plain and simple. Yeah, problem solved. Papa John.
We figured it out.
I mean, in college, that was a treasure to have a Papa John $5 pizza. But
Was it
after
ever
college,
$5? Yeah, it may have been like
$5. A $5 pizza, man.
Yeah, something like that. I know Little
$5
Caesars is
pizza, man.
$5.
Well, I'm saying the guy that stood outside of Morehouse.
Oh yeah, you're right. I remember that.
$5 pizza,
You're
man.
right. Yeah.
He stood. What was that? Brazil? Not Brazil. What was it? Purdue.
Purdue. Yeah,
Purdue.
Purdue.
He stood
Yep.
right outside of Purdue Hall.
Yeah, because he had like other
So
pizzas there already made and they hadn't sold. He would come over or whatever. I remember
yeah, and
that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't want to criminalize the guy or get him in any kind of trouble, but hey,
I mean, bro,
it
that
was
was
a,
almost 10 years ago he was doing that. Like, like
you make it sound like we old, man,
I
but
mean, it was almost 10 years ago. I think
but
he's
I
fine.
mean, the fact of it is, Papa John, the taste of the pizza is nowhere near as good as a Pizza Hut or Domino's. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So for some people, Papa John's is better than most. However, in my opinion, in most people's opinion that I know, Papa John's pizza is not that good. And that's the reason for the lack of sales of Papa John's. Not because of the NFL, because he's on almost every commercial. And regardless of the people that are protesting and are not watching an NFL, you still have a huge amount of people still watching the NFL, and they're still not going to Papa John's. And people are just tired of him sometimes. I'm tired of seeing Papa John on TV.
I
Do
mean,
it with somebody else. He's just irritated.
that's
He's not
rough.
irritating. That's I shouldn't say irritating, but it's like, come on, man.
So you're basically saying the reason why is because Papa John's pizza doesn't taste the
It's
best.
nasty. Correct,
That's I do know in the market of well, I don't know exactly, but I am aware that in the market of when it comes to pizza, there's a lot of it seems like I don't want to say turnover, but there's a lot of change that's going on in that market right now. So for example, I think one of the companies I don't want to say which one because I'm not exactly sure has like the 7.99 large pizza now. So there's a lot of
Domino's.
deals. Yeah, okay, Domino's. There's a lot of deals that you can get. Obviously the $5 pizza from Little Caesars, which essentially changed the game when it comes to pizza.
Yeah,
In addition, there's also pizza. You're seeing pizza companies offer a lot more, like wings, crazy bread, like and they're brownies. Like so, we're seeing like a lot of a huge change. And like you said, Domino's. I want to pinpoint Domino's. Domino's used to have some of the worst pizza in the market
right.
by far.
Definitely.
So what they did was, obviously they changed their recipe to make it better, and so that obviously they've changed their price points as well. Then you have other commercials where people are, changing up the their pizza locations. I forgot which
Right.
one that's doing that.
Domino's. It was
No,
Domino's.
that's Domino's too. Man, Domino's is doing a
Yeah.
lot. Domino's, Little Caesars, and pizza. Pizza has always had like the deep dish, so they've been pretty good with that. But yeah, so it's like it's Papa John just hasn't been as innovative as these other guys, and if they want to compete with these other guys, Little Caesars and their low price, obviously Domino's changing up the recipe, and Pizza Hut with their deep dish and whatnot. If they want to get in on that market, they've got to change and innovate, and they just haven't. So this is
And at the same time, the marketing strategy, maybe they need to work on that a little
yeah,
bit.
that as well. That's actually a really good point.
I mean, you have Peyton Manning, uh, Papa John's himself doing most of the advertising. Maybe they need to switch that style up. Maybe they're not targeting the right base of people to advertise their food to.
Yeah, that's I 100% agree. I 1000% agree with that. So yeah, so that's essentially our thoughts on that. Don't want to spend too much time on that, but just wanted to touch on it. He stepped down, so we're gonna see what amidst a ton of controversy. We'll see what Papa John's does with that controversy. Hopefully, they can segue that into something positive. We'll see. But right now, they're losing revenue. But based on what other people are doing, there's a lot of market share to go around, and this has nothing to do with the NFL ratings. This is all Papa John's. So, with that being said, with that kind of wrapped up a little bit, or as best we can with a quick conversation, let's segue over to the CDC and the banning of the word of the different words. Now, I know we're a little bit late on this, or probably like a lot of bit late on this, and it's been going on for the what's today? Thursday, Friday. So it's been going on pretty much all this week.
Thursday. Yeah.
About the banning of these 7 words, right? And I've
Right.
actually got a picture of the 7 words, so you guys can see exactly what they are. It's fetus, entitlement, vulnerable, diversity, transgender, evidence-based, and science-based. So we're gonna do a short, brief, what is it? Timeline of what happened, and then we're gonna talk about our thoughts on it, and the purpose of this podcast today that I really want to make sure that everybody understands is that these words, although whether they're banned or not, it's up to we'll get into that. But one of the things that it does make clear is that these are political lightning rods. These words, and it's something that if you are looking to get support, if you're working for the government and you're looking to get support for any initiative or policy or legislation, these words you may have to be weary of and may have to tread lightly around, at the very least, even if they're not banned. So, is there anything you want to add to that before I get into the timeline, Ray?
Uh, the fact that these seven words that are currently being supposedly or allegedly banned, um, are being used heavily by certain departments or offices within the CDC, including the National Center for HIV slash AIDS, virtual hepatitis, STD and TB presentation. So you have these offices who use these words. So how can you ban them
Yeah,
when they're included into their everyday work environment?
Yeah, no, I
But
agree.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Jay.
before we get too in depth, let's just go over the timeline real quick so everybody knows what we're talking about. So basically earlier this week, and then in the mid earlier this week, uh, what is it? The Washington Post. All right, so we'll start there. So if you hate the Washington Post, I'm sorry. If you think it's fake news, this is where it's coming from. But what I will say is, after the Washington Post did their article, calls were made to the Trump administration, and it wasn't denied that these words were brought up in the meeting, to possibly be banned or not. But anyway, so the
Well,
department.
let me say this, Jamie, before you continue. Dr. Brenda Fitzgerald, who is the CDC director, she went on Twitter and commented on it and said, "I want to assure you there are no banned words at the CDC. We will continue to talk about all our important public health programs."
I
And
mean,
this was on the 17th of December.
yep. So that happened around what? What is that? Tuesday? When
Yeah,
did that happen? No, it happened like right when it came out, right when the banning of the words came out. But anyway, let's get to the timeline.
Sunday. That was Sunday.
Yeah, let's get into the timeline because we're like delaying this. But so the Department of Health and Human Services. Well, so first off, it starts with the Centers. What is it? Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Basically, they had a meeting, and in that meeting, apparently someone came into the meeting and was going through, uh, when you're working for the CDC, you have to do different research projects and whatnot, and then you have to write up these research projects and then submit them to the administration. In that process, what the person who was relaying information from the Trump administration told the people in this meeting is that certain words should not be used. They called it forbidden, if you will. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't read anywhere where they said strictly exactly the words ban, but they either said either forbidden or it was alluded to that these were the words that you should stay clear of. Some of these words in the CDC meeting included fetus, transgender, and if I'm not mistaken, science-based or evidence-based. So from what we gather, an anonymous source told the Washington Post that this meeting had gone down, and the Washington Post was able to confirm this with other people in the meeting, stating that yes, they were told that to stay away from these words. As they did more research, they found out that there were other meetings going on, and in some of the other meetings for organizations that fall under the Department of Health and Human Services, they found that other words were strongly recommended not to be used, and those words were diversity, entitlement, and vulnerable. Now, a couple of days after this came out, the Trump administration jumped on this as soon as they could, and they essentially said that it's not true. We never banned these words. Don't know what they're talking about. Yada yada yada. And then when the Washington Post said, "Well, okay, were these words brought up in these meetings, and were they, suggested not to be used?" Essentially, the Trump administration said that, hey, when you're dealing with research like this, sometimes these organizations are self-censoring. And if they want to, when you're submitting these research papers, you're doing it for one of the reasons you could be doing it to do is for funding, right? If you find that, like you said, the HIV/AIDS, if you find a cure for HIV/AIDS, you're going to need the funding from the government. So you're going to use certain words within the research paper to get as much support as you can to get funding. And in order to do that, you try to be as non-political as possible. When you try to be non-political, some of these organizations, when they're self-censoring, they'll ensure that they don't use certain words. And that's what the Trump administration is saying. Like, these organizations, they're self-censoring, these departments or whatever, they're self-censoring themselves. We never told them to do that. And that's just pretty much what they came up with. So we have here are the staff within these organizations that are saying these words are banned. And you have the Trump administration that says, I don't know what they're doing, but we had nothing to do with that. And then we've essentially got like these middle people who are, I'm guessing, the people who came up with this based off of what both parties are saying. So because of that, we've got a lot of confusion, a lot of he said, she said, and now we're pretty much in the middle trying to figure out what this means for the administration, and ultimately, what does this mean for, America going forward, right? When we're dealing with these important organizations like the CDC, who need to get their point, need to get their research across so that they can get support from, possibly growing threats, growing diseases that we need to, get control of as soon as possible. And as of right now, we don't know if they're allowed to use the word science-based or evidence-based, and that's a bit of a worry. But that's essentially what we're here now, and we can definitely get into it right now. So, Ray, what are your thoughts?
I want to throw something in. You spoke about whether they can use science-based and
Right.
was evidence-based.
Right.
According to reports, the CDC gave them alternatives to those two phrases. For example, instead of using science-based or evidence-based, the CDC recommended the following: use these words. I'm getting screwed up. Excuse me. The CDC recommends use CBC basis recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes. So instead of using science-based, use that kind of a sentence.
Say that again.
So to say. CDC bases recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes.
So it's basically, instead of using science-based use, we're recommending something based
considerations.
Wait, say that. I'm sorry. One more time.
All right.
Science.
CDC bases recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes.
Okay, on science in consideration with community standards. Yeah, that's just that. Normally, I don't take firm positions, but that just can't be done, right? If it's a fact, we can't say this is a suggestion, or in
don't beat around the bush.
Yeah, or in consideration of community standards. Like, no, like this is a fact. This is a fact, right? Like we can't, and that's one of the biggest issues that the Trump administration has. Let's just be completely honest. I'm not trying to be controversial here, but their relationship with facts is extremely concerning. Because whatever you feel about the Washington Post or whatever, like I've definitely. It's funny. I was reading another article about how the Trump administration tried to put together this research report that essentially would prove that alternative energy sources were actually a hindrance to the economy as well as our resources. And it
Okay.
turned out that it wasn't, right. The facts prove that the people who were building
That was
these
a lie.
alternative energy resources were doing a good job, and they were doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, right? Cheaper,
All right.
a lot more efficient, and it wasn't a burden, on our resources. So what did they do? Under the Trump administration, they tried to change it so that it would still turn out to benefit or support whatever their end agenda is. And it just so happens that the draft of the first report got released. So I forgot what just got released to whoever. So once it got released, like the people within the Trump administration were unable to change it the way that they wanted to. And that's a problem, right? Like, I don't care whatever your beliefs are, but if the evidence disproves whatever belief you have, then that's the evidence, right? And that's what
Yeah,
we have to
and
go with.
basically own up to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't just say, okay, yeah, well, this says this, but I mean, well,
Commit
yeah, I don't know about that.
in
It still
consideration
says
of
that, but
community
it may not be
standards.
true.
Yeah.
No,
No, like,
own up to what the factual evidence proves is true, and say, hey, we were wrong. We apologize for being wrong, but we were wrong.
well, they're
We're
not going to
human. We
apologize.
made
I think
mistakes.
I think the bigger issue here is, especially when we're talking about science, right, and
Mhm.
evidence, right. The bigger
Right.
issue here is that if you are ignoring the facts, that could have serious repercussions for our country, right? Big thing here is climate change, right? I think that's the biggest and easiest thing to point to, right?
Right.
When you say climate change isn't real, so is climate change real? And if you have evidence that backs it up and proves that it is real, and you go against that, then that's not good for society. That doesn't help improve upon that and get us to where we need to go. I mean, look at the hurricanes, right?
Right.
Obviously, there's a certain we need to improve on what we're doing right now in terms of energy and in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of finding alternative ways that don't hurt the atmosphere. And if you're saying, oh well, you can't use science based or evidence based reasoning behind that, then that's just not that's going to hurt us in the long run. um and yeah, yeah.
Or future generations and everybody. I mean, it's not
Exactly.
just, you have to think about it more than just, okay, we don't want to show or pull a card so that if climate change is real. So let's just fake it. Some people are saying it's not real. Let's agree with what the select few people are saying instead of what the majority of the world is saying, and what the majority of the, not only in America, people scientists in America, but people outside of America scientists saying this is real. Look at the Alaska. Look at the water being, I mean, ice just being melting in all these cold places. And look in Chicago and Detroit. Usually around this time of the year, it's usually cold, but it's now
Yeah,
it's
it's not. Yeah,
it's warm. It's nice,
this is
and
why.
it's crazy.
Yeah, this is
It
why you
doesn't
need
make
to
any
be able to
sense.
say like science based, and evidence based, and not beat around the bush like we were talking about earlier. Like,
Right.
these are the facts. So we've been kind of focusing in on those two words specifically, that evidence based and science based, and just why there's you shouldn't be if even if there wasn't a banning of these words, there shouldn't be any type of you shouldn't have to fear political repercussions just by saying evidence based and science based.
Right.
Like, there should
And
never.
transgender.
Well, I can understand transgender, right? Because the Trump administration tried to ban transgender people from the military,
But
right?
why are they, the problem I have with this is the constant, uh, the administration trying to suppress the issues around sexual orientation. it doesn't make sense. Like you brought up the military ban on transgenders, and the uh, Homeland Security, I believe, and Department of HHS has also removed all information about LGBT Americans from their website.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, what's the logical reason behind any of this? What's the logical reason behind saying that climate climate change is false, and banning the use of the word transgender from the CDC, and banning transgender people from the military, and taking all the information from a website or archiving it, and just basically saying, "Oh, it never was there,"
Well,
but forgetting about these group of people.
yeah. So I hear where you're coming from. I hear where you're coming from on that. I definitely agree. However, when President Trump was running for office, he made it very clear, or he made it very clear. And if you weren't clear about it, just look at his running mate Mike Pence, right, who is not a supporter of LGBT issues at all, right? He may
About
play the
Christian, so to say.
right. Like you may play the word games, but let's just get this out in front and center. He is not a supporter of LGBT issues. So if you when you saw if you are a part of the LGBT community, you should have been out front and center, voting to ensure that President Trump does not get elected. Because I mean that there's a lot of maybe ifs ands that he may or may not have done, but when it comes to the LGBT community, if Trump got elected, you knew that this was coming. They made it very clear that this was coming. So although I don't agree with what he's doing, I understand where he's coming from in the transgender. I mean, I understand where the CDC and the Homeland Security or the health. I'm sorry. Uh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Where is it? Department of Health and Human Services. I understand where they're coming from in terms
Yes,
of
that
them
the
trying.
HHS. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Thanks, Sam.
and them trying not to be political, by refraining from saying the word transgender. That makes sense. As does refraining from saying like diversity, and entitlement, uh, possibly fetus. Don't understand vulnerable, but I understand where the transgender diversity and entitlement are coming from, and fetus are coming from. The evidence based, science based, and then the vulnerable. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
I don't understand where fetus is coming from either.
So fetus is a hot button topic because that gets into, in my opinion, the what is it called, pro life, pro choice issue. So
Okay.
does the fetus have rights? Is the fetus a person? That type of thing. I can understand the potential controversy around saying things such as, if I'm just throwing this out there, but if you say something like, "Hey, the fetus can't feel pain" or something like that, that
But
you
let
have the
me ask
right
you
to
a question.
report. What?
When the CDC is working on finding out the causes of birth defects that are caused by the Zika virus, and they're doing research on developing fetuses, it doesn't make sense to outline the word. So what are you going to say? Developing what? Human beings?
I mean,
Is that better?
I don't know. I have no clue. But
But I'm just saying it doesn't make sense.
I mean, look, I'm with you on that. I don't agree on fetus, but I do agree on evidence based. So I understand when you see a word and you're like, why are we banning this word? I get it, but I 100% get it. I'm just telling you what the possible reasoning could be behind it. Uh, Now,
Right. Okay.
we've been talking about a lot of things. One of the things that it's troubling that they would do this, but banning the word diversity. Now, obviously, here at Supplier News, our original name was Global Diversity News. So clearly we couldn't get an invite if we had our original name. We'd have to call ourselves Global
Mhm.
News, Global D News, in order to get in. But but no, to be serious here, all of these are very troubling in terms of people thinking that they need to be careful around using these words. For us, let's talk about diversity for a little bit, just from our own point of view. But I do think that this is this means an even greater, or this is an even greater issue around what the Trump agenda is, the Trump administration agenda is moving towards, or at the very least, how people view the Trump agenda. And it's very clear that if you're afraid to use these words, whether they're banned or not, this was brought up in a meeting, and this does mean that people are wary of these words. This means that they truly believe that the Trump administration is not in support of entitlement programs, is not in support of diversity programs, transgender programs. I mean, just put programs on on the end of any of these evidence-based programs or science-based programs, and
Right.
that is a huge issue.
But
And
it
for,
seems to be big on fake news, which he constantly. If you're not big on science based programs or evidence based programs, the only programs that would be of your interest would be fake programs
well, I don't.
or quote unquote fake news,
Well,
right?
let's not say fake news, right? So we do know what they are in support of, right? For example, the tax plan just got passed, right? That
Yeah.
big tax reform plan, which also changed which changed the individual mandate in the Affordable Care Act. Funny enough, so they actually finally passed some legislation uh, that's beginning
To
to. You could make the
try to
argument,
repeal.
yeah, beginning to, yeah, exactly, repeal the Obamacare or Affordable Care Act, or whatever you want to call it.
And
But
it's crazy. That's kind of sad at the end of the day
um,
because so many people are relying on it. So we're going to undermine it, make it weak, for basically to say, okay, let's get rid of it now. For people to say, okay, this is ridiculous, we have to get rid of it. So we're going to weaken it and weaken it and weaken it.
I'm not. If you want to get rid of it, fine, but you better have something that's better. That's my problem with them.
Obviously, they
Yeah,
didn't.
and they don't like that. That's really my big issue with them. They don't have a plan that's better, and that, according to President Trump, he said he's going to have something that's better and covers more people, and it's going to be cheaper.
And
Um,
it definitely
he had,
seems like right now they don't have
yeah, he hasn't had,
any words that are better to use than these 7 words either.
right,
It's
right,
just a
right,
gut reaction. Let's get rid of these words.
right.
Okay, cool. Let's go, Trump. Let's do it today. We'll do it now.
I get what
It's
you're
like
saying.
no kickback.
Yeah, he does do that a lot, even with the transgender ban that he just wrote in a tweet, and then
Hey,
transgender may or may not be banned from the military. Like he does do that a lot, and it seems as if his administration is taking off of is going with that, and now they're just kind of pushing the agenda here and there or wherever without, like you just said, an overall strategy.
right.
The tax reform, like I said, we know that he's in support of those type of programs. Basically, if he thinks it's going to be good for the economy, it's something that he's going to support, which is good. Don't get me wrong. We do need less regulation. How much less, is up for debate, but it is good that we are reducing regulation. However, what we're seeing, I mean, something that we've known, but now we're seeing directly is a conflict between what happens if science tells you something that directly conflicts with the growth of the economy. What happens then? And what we're seeing is that under the Trump administration, the economy means more than science or diversity or whatever have you. He's really pushing the growth of the economy, and now the question becomes, what are the negatives, you know, or if the economy has any type of negative influence on other parts of our society, what does that mean in the long run? And as of right now, the Trump administration just doesn't have an answer to that. And you can look at the tax reform bill that was just passed as evidence 101, which is well, it's going to add over $1 trillion to our debt, and we don't know how we're going to pay for it. But it is great for the short-term economy. Don't get me wrong; it's great for the short-term economy, but 5-6 years from now, I mean, it's terrible. So we'll see what happens. But that's kind of where we are with that. So essentially, these 7 words are kind of, we don't know if they're banned or not, but we do know that these organizations have highlight these words as potential political lightning rods that they don't want to use, and it also tells you kind of what the Trump administration, or how people view the Trump administration moving forward. Now, if the Trump administration wants to change that, I think they have more than enough opportunities to do that. But at the end of the day, we'll see. So that's pretty much our thoughts on that. Do you have anything to
That's
add,
the
Ray?
thing. We'll see. No, I was just gonna say the thing is we'll see, but also the fact of it, are they willing to own up? Okay, we did ban these words after further observation. We felt as though it was unnecessary.
You're not gonna get
after
that.
the strong criticism. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
You're not gonna get. They have to.
I would love to get.
They don't admit. They don't admit if they're
any wrongdoing.
Yeah, they don't admit wrongdoing. That's the Trump administration. I mean, the Obama administration. I can't think of anything where they admitted. Maybe on Obamacare they admitted some wrongdoing on that one. They're like, yeah, we probably could have handled this better. So okay, never mind. I take that back. The Obama administration did admit some faults there, but the Trump administration has made it very clear they are never wrong. They're not.
Yeah, that's a serious problem.
Yeah. So if you catch them in a wrongdoing, they're just going to say they didn't do it.
And then that's what this and. You said it perfectly with the director of the CDC saying we're not banning any words. That's definitely false.
And that's consistent with Trump, with President Trump. If he gets caught,
exactly, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
So that's
you have these branches.
Yeah, so you're not gonna get that.
Just all no, and it's sad. It's really sad. But I mean, it's not sad. I mean, I understand you don't want to say, okay, I was wrong. Nobody wants to do that.
I get that. You want to exert
but
power,
at the same time, you have to man up and say, okay, man up or woman up and say, okay, yeah, that was wrong. I do apologize, but let's make things better. Let's find a new solution, or give a reasoning or understanding. And they're probably not going to give it to us, but an understanding as to why these words are being.
They did. They said that these are political lightning rods, right? If you put this in a research paper and you're trying to get, for example, funding, you're less likely to get funding if you use the word science-based versus that wording that you used earlier.
And they said something, the fact that there were supposedly, according to reports, the ban is related to the president's 2019 budget plans.
Oh, wow. 2019.
Yeah, because that budget plan supposedly had to be in by February of 2018. Well, so that's why this news is coming out now.
Yeah, that makes sense even more, right? If you want to be a part of that budget, you want to get that funding, don't use these words. If you're putting together research.
The thing is, they said that another report said that science-based and evidence-based were not that big of a deal. So people can use those words. However, the report came back with the 5 other words from the CDC, and the report had to be rescinded. It was sent back because those words were included, which were diversity, transgender, fetus, entitlement, and vulnerable.
That's unfortunate. But hey, they made it very clear that that's not what, that's not the future of, that's not what they're trying to push here. And hey, that's there is some negatives to that, right? You don't support diversity, then in Alabama 95% of black people vote against you, right? That's what you risk when you do that. But this is the Trump administration, and that's kind of what they're pushing. So
they're hurting their brand, so to say, and that's being the Republican Party.
Yeah, that another conversation for another time. But yeah,
right.
That is something that they definitely need to look at long term, because there's no reason why they lost to Alabama. There's no reason for that. But all right, that's pretty much it from. That's it from us. As always, please like, subscribe, comment on the video. Tell us what you think. How can we improve? What topics do you want to hear from us? But we appreciate the support, especially from the last video. We're hoping that I'm hoping this one gets 1% of the last one. So if we can get 23 views, I'd be ecstatic. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much for all the support. Thanks for listening if you made it this far. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, happy holidays to everyone. Hope everyone has a good week, a good holiday, and Happy New Year's. We don't post a podcast.
Yeah, we should post another one before
Anytime
then,
soon.
man. Yeah, we'll post another one. Probably one between
Okay.
Christmas.
Well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah,
then.
between Christmas and New Year's, we'll probably do another one. So,
Okay.
all right, guys. Take care.